And now returning to our top story, the arrest of 6 more people in the News of the World phone hacking scandal, including Rebekah Brooks, the former News International boss. Joining us now from London is John Rentoul, the chief political commentator for The Independent on Sunday. Thank you very much for being there for us. Now, Rebekah Brooks was editor of the News of the World. She was, just before resigning, the chief executive of News International. What's the significance of her re-arrest? Because, of course, she was arrested for the first time in July last year.
That's right. The significance, apart from providing excellent cartoon entertainment for the British people, is her closeness to the Prime Minister, because David Cameron used to employ someone who also used to edit the News of the World, Andy Coulson. Was his press secretary for some time, until he resigned last year in order to spare David Cameron any further embarrassment. But I mean, David Cameron is a personal friend of Rebekah Brooks and her husband, Charlie Brooks. They're all members of what we call the Cotswold set. They live in and around David Cameron's rather lush Oxfordshire constituency. And they all like riding horses, so that provides another layer of entertainment to us entertainment-starved Brits, because the Prime Minister, it turned out, actually rode one of Rebekah Brooks's horses, which, in a comic twist that nobody could have invented, had been lent to her by the Metropolitan Police, who are now investigating her and arresting her.
And this goes to the central point of this entire scandal, doesn't it? And that's the relationships between the press, the police and the politicians.
That's right. I mean, this is a multifaceted business which just has everything in it. I mean, it has journalists behaving badly, including hacking the telephones of celebrities, and nobody minds about them. But when they started hacking the phones of non-celebrities, including the phone of the murdered teenager Millie Dowler, people got very, very irate about it. But journalists have also behaved badly in bribing members of the police for stories, and members of the police have behaved extremely badly in selling stories to journalists. And so those of us at perhaps the sort of posher end of journalism in this country have been rubbing our hands with Schadenfreude.
But just to get this clear, what's interesting, of course, is that she's been rearrested by Operation Weeting, which is the police investigation looking into phone hacking specifically, as opposed to the other investigation, which is running parallel, looking into those payments to police. Curiously, though, because a lot of people have been expecting perhaps that she might come under the spectre of that investigation, given what she said to that committee back in 2003.
Well, that's right. I mean, certainly, as editor of the News of the World, she must have authorised all sorts of rather curious payments, including payments to private detectives for doing things which may or may not have been legal, including hacking phones. But some payments might well have been destined for the pockets of police officers. I mean, it's dangerous to speculate. It's not going to stop a lot of people. But perhaps I shouldn't speculate too much on what it is that the police have arrested her for. I mean, all we've had is a statement. I mean, they haven't formally confirmed that it is her, but they have said that they've arrested a 43-year-old woman in relation to charges to do with the obstruction of justice. And it is understood that those are to do with phone hacking rather than, as you say, the bribery.
Extraordinarily, her husband is possibly one of the most interesting arrests so far. He's not a journalist, he's a horse trainer.
That's right. And he's also a personal friend of the Prime Minister, even more of a friend of David Cameron's than Rebekah Brooks, because he and the Prime Minister have been friends for far longer. It looks as if this investigation is following evidence contained on computers and in private offices, because Rebekah Brooks's personal assistant was arrested in January, and so goodness knows what this is all going to going to lead to. I mean, personally, I'm a bit uncomfortable about the police arresting people for this kind of investigation. It doesn't seem to be proportionate or necessary. But it certainly suggests that the police, I mean, and that's why I'm uncomfortable with it. It's a way of the police advertising to the world that they think so and so has done something they shouldn't have been doing.
But somewhat curiously, there have been no prosecutions so far, and yet Operation Weeting began in January of last year. It's more than 12 months on. I guess people will start to weary of the arrests and start to look for some concrete steps forward. Especially given there are something like 100 police working on this and have been for a year or so. I mean, there's a lot of controversy around the number of police resources that have been dedicated to this. People are going to want to start to see results, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is another criticism, that the police are spending a vast amount of resources. I mean, in a sense, they can't win on that one because previously they've been criticised for being much too lax. And John Yates, the policeman who originally investigated the hacking allegations, looked at it for 4 hours and decided that there wasn't really much to this nonsense, and has been heavily criticised since for such insouciance. But these investigations do take a long time, and assembling the evidence is very difficult, and especially when it's as politically sensitive as this, because you are talking about people who are very closely associated with the Prime Minister, David Cameron, and the political implications of this could be quite significant, especially if more charges are brought against Andy Coulson, who was employed by the Prime Minister.
And he was closer to, I mean, Rebekah Brooks had left as editor before any of these suggestions actually emerged, and it was, as you mentioned, Andy Coulson who then went on to become the Prime Minister's press secretary. So where does that arrest stand at the moment? I understand he's on bail, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, presumably his case will be considered with all the others, and this is going to take a long time to run. I mean, obviously, David Cameron will be sure that this will all be sorted out well before the 2015 election, which is our next election. But the stories that are coming out about the links between politicians, and especially David Cameron, and News International are not good for the Prime Minister, and they're going to carry on. Appearing, because this investigation, as you suggest, is going to take months and months before we get to any prosecutions, and then that will go on for a long time after that. So the political damage for David Cameron is only just beginning, I suspect.
Oh, and just very quickly, I wanted to mention, of course, that it's been a couple of weeks since The Sun on Sunday has been launched, your competitor newspaper. Have you seen any change to what came before it in the News of the World?
I haven't read it very closely, even though it is obviously a rival. It's gone for some rather upmarket columnists, some political columnists. Yvette Cooper, who's one of the leading lights in the Labour Party here, wrote a column for it last week, because the Labour Party in Britain has had a rather delicate line to tread. I mean, Ed Miliband, the leader of the Labour Party, has rather proudly boasted of how he stood up to Rupert Murdoch and how he demanded an inquiry into press malpractice, which was primarily aimed at Rupert Murdoch's newspapers. So the Labour Party have been handling it rather delicately. But so far, The Sun on Sunday has been selling well, not as well as the News of the World, but seems to have got off to a reasonably quiet start.
John Rentoul,
you wouldn't expect a competitor to say anything else.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening, John Rentoul, Chief Political Commentator for The Independent on Sunday. Thank you.